All right. So a very warm welcome to everybody. Let me quickly share my screen and we can get started with today's session. Today, obviously, this is the webinar number 15 in our series this year, the webinar series for ISPIC 2021, which is the India Smart Protein Innovation Challenge. As you all know, we have with us our expert speaker today to talk about design thinking, creating unique value proposition and business modeling. As I was telling you a little bit earlier before we started the session, this is a very relevant session for both track 1 innovation and track 2 basically entrepreneurship, because in many ways you're thinking about a unique value proposition and design thinking in aspects of SciTech solution or a business-oriented commercial solution, right, in both cases. And at the same time, we have Ajay Batra, who's the EVP at Venture FastTrack at Wadhwani Foundation, who also works on a lot of these webinars and workshops with CIECO, who's our organizing partner on ISPIC 2021. So really, really happy to host you today, Ajay, with us. Very warm welcome.
Thank you.
And I'm, as you know, the host for today's session. So feel free to send me any thoughts throughout the session through the chat box. I work as an innovation specialist with the GFI India team, as you all know, and we are quite excited because we've reached here on webinar number 15, which is kind of halfway through our inspiration webinar series. We have still 10-15 more sessions to go in phase 3 and phase 4. So quite exciting that we've reached this midway and you guys have spent already 1.5 months with us thinking about a particular area within the 3 technology areas of the smart protein sector in India, which is plant-based meat, eggs and dairy, fermentation-derived meat, eggs and dairy, and cultivated meat, eggs and dairy products or solutions or technological innovations or ingredient innovations within the supply chain or value chains of these 3 areas. And obviously, none of this would have been possible without our sponsors, Capri Global, NICE, Alchem Foundation, CIECO, who's our organizing partner. And obviously, because of their support, we are able to do today's session with Ajay. Also, we have a lot of supporting partners in the challenge this year: BioRack, NIFTIM, Sign, IIT Incubator at IIT Bombay, ABLE, CCamp, Atal Incubation Center, IIT Madras Bio Incubator. A lot of these bio incubators, academic research institutions would be helpful for food tech and biotech startups and other such allied startups in our ecosystem. At the same time, venture capitalists, sector building organization, VC firms, accelerators and incubators as you see below are also our smart protein ecosystem partners on the challenge. So Ajay, just for your information, currently we have 53 teams, which is almost 150 individuals. And in track 1, which is innovation, which is more of a scientific solution based track, we have almost 30 teams, which is 81 individuals. And in track 2, which is more about startups and venture creation around a specific problem statement area, white space opportunity area, we have almost 24 startups with 68 members. So, and the further distribution between plant-based, cultivated and fermentation tracks is kind of given here. The good thing to note is it's a diverse cohort of 150 candidates across almost 24 states and more than 60 cities in India, and representing more than 100 unique colleges, university, organizations and startups. At the same time, this is a little bit about the evaluation criteria that we are, evaluating the phase 3 proposals on. For track 1, that is 15-page scientific crisp kind of a proposal, and for track 2, it's more of a scientific plus business proposal of 25 pages. That's why the 10-page longer kind of a leeway for them to work on. And this is the evaluation criteria for track 1, like economic and commercial feasibility is also key aspect in track 1. At the same time, thinking about who the solution is for, how is going to be commercially feasible for all the stakeholders, etc., is kind of inbuilt into our practical approaches of looking for a solution for a specific problem statement. Track 2, which is more about entrepreneurship, we also thinking about the team composition. Obviously their scientific and product and process clarity, SOPs, novelty in their process in terms of innovation, in terms of the customers they're targeting, health benefits, nutritional benefits, environmental benefits. At the same time, also looking at regulatory considerations, economic and commercial feasibility, commercialization strategy, marketing and sales plan. So that's how similarly for cultivated and fermentation, because that's a more technologically advanced area, the products might not be in the market immediately. So for those reasons, the evaluation criteria parameters change a little bit, but largely they kind of remain the same for similar to plant-based technology areas. Having said that, I'll welcome Ajay to switch on his slides and perhaps take us through the session and perhaps tell us a little bit more about how you've been engaging with startups in technology areas like ours, maybe your experience from the previous year's sessions as well to begin with, so that people understand a little bit better about where you're coming from. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Sure. Shardul, thank you for that very warm welcome and good evening, everyone. Thank you for spending or choosing to spend your Friday evening with us. Delighted to be here. And beyond the innovation challenge per se, I think we are all part of a larger movement that's going around the world. And certainly in India, over the last few years, we've seen a fair amount of traction in this space. And depending on who you talk to, they'll tell you that it's all about healthy choices, it's about sustainability, and it's also, of course, about leading the whole world together in a larger social impact. And while there's technology and there's business, there is also the fact that it's, depending on who you talk to, $10 to $20 billion opportunity. So kudos for being part of this challenge and the final cohort. Thank you again for being here. As Shardul said, my work throughout has been entrepreneurial. I've been an entrepreneur myself, as launched a series of ventures over the last 10 odd years. I've largely been doing startup mentoring and angel investing as well. Was fortunate to be part of the similar initiative last year. So we had a series of webinars on how to build an idea, how to take an idea forward, and how to convert that idea into commercial success. In general, how to take an idea eventually to the users and consumers. So by and large, that theme continues. While we will talk about specifics around design thinking, business model, canvas, value proposition, but I don't want you guys to feel overwhelmed with this terminology. We're going to do a very hands-on workshop here. This truly is a workshop. So please be prepared to chat, turn your mic on, turn your camera on if you can, and have some conversation as we go along. As I said, the intent here is much larger than just innovation and just business. If you can plant a seed, literally a seed, of how do you really build on an idea, and how does an idea become, if not market dominating, then a world changing force. That's really the larger theme here, and we'll jump into it. I am part of Wadhwani Foundation, and I also have co-founded a firm called Unicorn Growth Partners, through which we offer support, help, tools to startups, and we do investments as well. Okay, so there were some names that you saw in the previous slide. This is just an illustrative list, of course, both Indian and global names. We're going to talk about how do you really, even before you make a startup successful, how do you really come upon an idea that has potential? And how do you apply principles of startup maturity, design thinking, to take it forward? And along the way, while there's structured support available in this program over the next few months, once you're on your own, sometimes it's hard to keep track of things. Sometimes it's hard to know, am I doing all the right things? Am I really developing a product and making sure it is innovative enough? Am I protecting my patent? And if you're taking to the market, do you have the right people to help you along? Do you have the right approach toward marketing, right? Startups are way beyond ideas, and we'll get into some of those as well. So folks, we're going to talk about a lot of things. While we have a couple of hours, we'll keep a rather quick pace in what we do here. But like I said, this is your session. Questions, comments, more than welcome. We can have a discussion if there are multiple opinions. Let's see how we balance it all. So folks, like I said, feel free to participate with your comments and questions as we go along. Okay, but before we get into specifics of this challenge, before we get into what does really smart protein as a concept mean, and how can you convert into a viable opportunity, innovation, and or a business, let's just step back a bit. And for this, I will need you to, again, either type or speak up. I'm going to open up the chat window. Okay, so let's start with some basic stuff, right? Just kind of warm ourselves up. Who do you see on the screen? Okay, Arman says Mr. Premji. Others? Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Now, what most people don't know is the backstory around Mr. Premji. And of course, we all know him to head Wipro today. But most people don't know that he was actually studying in the US when he had to leave his studies midway and return to India because unfortunately his father passed away. And he had to come and take over his father's company. Do you want to guess what that company was into? You can speak or type. His family business. Yeah, Wipro, but what was it into? There you go. Absolutely right. So oil, soaps, ghee, and interestingly, Wipro is a fancier name. It was called Western India Products. And so he came over and took over a rather traditional business, if you will, and of course turned it around, right, into the IT giant that Wipro is today. And of course, I think many people know he also, and I've had the good fortune of working with him on this. He also runs a foundation called the Azim Premji Foundation, which is working on addressing quality education issues in rural India largely, and doing great work in that domain. Okay, so pretty good. Warming up, like I said. So from ghee to computers, from Vanaspati to software. Okay, who's this? This is related to our conversation today. Okay, some names coming in, some more. Hint, his t-shirt. Some more. We got some names, I'm not commenting on them. Okay, so Brown is a common denominator so far. That's right. That's right. So that is Ethan Brown, founder of Beyond Meat, and of course a pioneer in this space. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Now all of you getting it. Beyond Meat, Ethan Brown. Okay, who's this? Anyone? Some responses coming in. Some more before I comment. Okay. Arman is on a roll here. Others? Come on, folks. So Arman is right. This is Sairi Chahel, founder of She Rose, right? She Heroes, She Plus Heroes. So great forum for enabling women's economic and social empowerment. Really doing great work in that area. Okay, and before Arman gives an answer, who's this? Somebody before Arman. That's right. So one more. And what is he famous for? It is Muhammad Yunus. Yunus, actually, not Yusuf. Yunus. Grameen Bank, absolutely right. And the Nobel laureate at that. So Ajay, you're right as well. So is Swapnil. So he's responsible really creating the microfinance industry around the world, and done great work in the area of poverty alleviation. Nobel Prize winning a Nobel Prize along the way. Grameen Bank is one such initiative. Okay, one last. We're warming up again, related to our world. Who's this? This name everybody knows. That's right. Absolutely right. The founder of Good Dot, that is indeed Abhishek. Look at the responses coming now. So you guys know your space very well. It's very, very obvious. Well done. Yeah, Good Dot. Good. So on the dot there, all of you, now tell me, what are your thoughts? And actually, if you can just unmute, it'll be great to hear your voice as well. Anyone?
Yeah.
Sneha. Yeah, Shardul. Yeah, it'll be great to hear you. Arman, you want to speak up? Go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Batra. Nice to meet you today. Yes.
Hey, Arman.
Yes. So the common thing between all these individuals, at least according to me, is that all of them are change makers.
Okay.
That's what I could come up with.
Okay. And who is a change maker, really?
In my opinion, across all this pool, Mr. Brown is a change maker, at least for me, because he was the one who, in a way, started the plant-based meat category. Actually trailblazed it, got it into the general domain. if you go anywhere in the US, everybody knows what Beyond is. And whenever I need to explain the concept to anyone, I generally cite that example.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So they're all change makers. Other thoughts? Thank you, Arman.
Thank you.
Others?
So they are mainly problem solvers.
Okay.
They analyze the problem and they solve it with different types of solutions.
Okay. Great response. I'm on all that. Didn't catch your name.
So my name is Jay Gupta.
Jay Gupta. Great. Thank you.
Thank
But
you.
yeah, I'm also testing how many of you actually watched the video from earlier, and looks like some of you have. Others? Okay. So actually, what we heard just now is absolutely on the dot. While most people may say they are entrepreneurs, change maker, innovators, essentially they're doing two things. They are doing something that is close to their heart, and along the way, they are making it a better place for all of us to live in, really fundamentally. Commercial or not commercial. If you notice here, some of the folks have actually non-commercial outfits, Mohammed Yunus, right? Or Mr. Premji's Azim Premji Foundation. But there is a sense, and there's a sense of purpose around what they want to do, why they want to do it. And along the way, they're innovating and creating categories, as the word was used, and businesses and social spaces to create an impact. Fundamentally making the world a better place, like I said, in their own way. Some big, some really big and small, some maybe initially small. And that's okay. Size isn't a concern here. Okay, we're going to talk now. While Shardul did talk about how we're kind of combining two threads here, one around innovation and product creation, the other is around entrepreneurship. But actually, if you think about it, some of the fundamental concepts of doing a startup applied to both an R&D situation and a commercial startup. Why? Because even in an R&D situation, you have to follow certain principles of knowing the market and knowing the customer and what you're doing and how they're different and how do they add value if you really want to innovate for the common good. And of course, the same principles are very, very relevant to startups. So here we are. What do you see on the screen? Anyone? What do you see? What's happening? What kind of dreams are you seeing being pursued here? Anyone? You see a young person launching, thinker's path, idea to launch, okay. Thought to move, okay. Chasing, good one. Okay, yeah, you're right. There's a dream of trying to create something, and it's not just a wild dream. In some sense, our young entrepreneur here or innovator is actually somewhat prepared, right? You see that he's got a backpack with goodies, hopefully, for the journey. He's got a bike to help him along, and he's somewhat realistic, right? He doesn't see the road as a flat road or going down. He sees the road slight slope going up, so he will need acceleration, right, Akshay? So he's the one thing that's very clear, and you can see with the smile on his face, it's a lot of energy, ambition. Thank you, Pratima, correct. Thank you. He's ambitious. There's energy, there's preparation, and there's desire to convert an idea into something real. Fantastic. And that's exactly what great ideas stories are made of. Having said that, and curiosity. Thank you. Oh, so what do you see here now? If that were startup dreams, what is this? What's happening here? It's up and down. There are obstacles. You're right. That's reality with roadblocks. Yep, Ajay. That is reality. So the true path has difficulties, as Jay Gupta says now, and it's a roller coaster. That's also a good word. Okay, very good, very good. You got the trend. You got the trend. Okay, folks. So the idea here, by the way, is not to scare you, but to prepare you to be more practical about the journey you're on. Again, it does not matter whether it's you just want to innovate and do pure R&D, or you want to do R&D and take something to the market. Just keep in mind the road is almost never linear, right? The stories we hear about good products coming to the market, companies becoming unicorns, the curve is never like this, ever. It's always zigzag, up and down, sine wave, cos wave. But along the way, please do notice in this picture itself, while there are hurdles, there are possible solutions as well. So while there's a valley, there's a possible ladder you can use. While if there's an ocean or a river, there's probably, I don't know, a rope and a ship for you to figure out how to use. So as much as there are hurdles, there are possible solutions as well, and it's upon us to figure those out along the way. So once again, some people tell us, right? I work with a lot of startups. As I mentioned earlier, my work is to work largely with early stage startup and to some extent with growth stage as well. The energy of a startup sometimes comes from the very fact that they're trying to solve a difficult problem. The ability to take on a large challenge, to overcome these hurdles that you see on the screen here, is actually the fun part. It can get to you sometime, but by and large, the fun of doing a journey. Having said that, most startups often say, hey, listen, I know I'm on it, but am I doing well? What else is ahead? Have I really conquered some of the issues in the past? And how fast can I get to my destination? Those are questions everyone has, right? Including, again, it doesn't matter whether you're just doing product development or market development. And we will answer these questions today through multiple frameworks. And by the way, while we'll talk about concepts, today I'm going to leave you with maybe 3 or 4 practical tools. I will share this entire presentation with you, of course, afterwards. And the tools are all embedded in this. So we're going to leave you with frameworks, idea that you can start using tomorrow. I understand there's something you're doing as part of this challenge, which is preparing, going through these webinars, and eventually there's a pitch that you have to be prepared for. But life is beyond this competition, right? Life is hopefully taking these ideas, bringing these ideas to life. So as you go forward, these tools, I think, will help you beyond the purview of this particular competition. Okay, well, let's keep going. So Indian startup ecosystem actually is relatively new, about 10 odd years. Since 2016, we've seen ourselves go on a very fast trajectory. For 10 odd years, believed to be the 3rd largest ecosystem in the world. So we often compete with the Silicon Valley, Israel, London, parts of Singapore, parts of China as well. But so depending on which survey you look at, some say top 3, top 5, in that range, and growing, right? We've all heard the story of the Nykas and Paytms and Zomatos becoming unicorns and going public last year. And that continues, that facet continues. Having said that, the stark reality, folks, is that not just in India, around the world, a vast majority of startups fail. And that's an area of concern. And one of our objectives today is to make sure your idea as a product, as an innovation, and your idea as a venture is as successful as it can be. And we're trying to improve the success rate, to be honest. So why do you think this happens? And I'd love to hear voices, please. Unmute. Why do so many startups around the world fail? Folks, why?
Just raise your hands and I can promote you to be a speaker, guys.
Many startups struggle in the early days, maybe launch, maybe do a lot of product development and innovation, but eventually are not quite able to sustain.
Lack of execution that can take us to product market fitness.
Because lack of courage.
Lack of courage. I'll come to you in a second. Sorry, I missed the first one. What was that about? If you could...
Lack of execution that can take us to product market fitness.
Okay. So good points, Rami. Was it Rami? Yeah. So 2 points
sir.
actually said product market fit and execution. We'll come to both. Good points. And sorry, the next one is about
Lack of courage.
Courage. What do you mean by that?
Because they always think that if something risk will be occur, so they are not ready to take the risk. So for that reason.
Lack of execution.
Lack of direction.
Direction is interesting. Achha, now executions come a couple of times. When you guys say execution, what does it mean? What does execution mean?
Testing the whole.
Testing a
parts.
little more.
Iterating.
Basically, from idea to the original product.
Okay. Okay, taking it forward, experimenting, iterating, and one big aspect of execution.
Pivoting at right time.
Sorry?
Pivoting at right time.
Pivoting at the right time. So related to what, Ronak, you want to say something?
Pivoting at the right time.
Pivoting, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Go ahead. Finish your thought, Ronak.
No.
So
it
actually,
is also about right time. Many ideas which might take up today would have been very difficult 10 years ago.
Think about it. Actually, it's a great point. Think about, if this, it's a sad situation, but if this pandemic had happened 10 years ago, can you imagine our life without the internet, the Netflixes, and the Zooms? Right? Similarly, where the protein movement is today, I can't imagine it seeing so much traction as it is right now. Maybe 5 years ago, it was rather nascent. But you're right. So word execution actually is fairly loaded, and all of you said is correct. I'll add one more thing on top of that. Execution also requires perseverance. Execution is about once you have an idea and some direction and some pivoting and changes and experimentation, but you stay on track. You keep moving forward inch by inch every single day. So that is one of the reasons for startup failures. Some more, please. Why do so many startups fail?
One more can be that they remain in their bubble.
Meaning, Arman?
So, right. I'll explain it a bit further. So, after a point of time, they don't really ask the people if they want the product. And the second part of it can be that they fail to innovate after a point of time. Instead of taking opinions from different people, they stick to their opinions, restricted to the people who head the organization.
Actually, Arman, if I may just Arman actually made two great points. I want to build on those. A, when they start the journey, do they start it with an accurate understanding of what the people, market, customers out there need? And B, along the way, remember, execution is not about just going in a straight line, but continuously taking feedback and making adjustments. If you don't adjust, that can cause trouble as well. Thank you. Sorry, go ahead, please. The next one.
Yeah, so I think the simply because of the lack of sound business model, companies are not able to sustain themselves month by month, and that gets you to require funds from outside, and if you can't get it, you naturally suffer. So
another great point, Pratik.
Yeah,
and we are seeing this happen, right? We've seen the IPOs of Nykaa versus Paytm, and I hope you're following them in terms of how they're doing in the stock market, which is a reflection of how strong they are as a business. Go ahead, please.
Also, many startups fail to allocate funds correctly to their business model.
Sometimes they start too aggressively and don't have the funds, and when they have the funds, they don't quite use it to them well. Correct.
Right mindful.
Also, very important to have a right team.
Right team, and I heard something else from Rithi. What was it?
The same thing I said. The mindful, yeah.
The right team. I thought I heard right mindset, which is also a good one, but right team certainly, or not having the right mix of team is yet another. So absolutely right. I'm going to give you some bit of a ranked order. You can find it in surveys, but some bit of this is also peppered with my anecdotal experience of working with startups. So a vast majority of them fail. And the exact number will vary, right? But I'm going to show you a number, maybe number 3 for a specific startup. But these are the 5 that I see very, very often. And I think you've hit upon most of them, if not maybe 4 out of 5 we touched upon. The first one is really fundamental. And we see that in all technology startups, and technology doesn't mean, IT and blockchain. Technology could be right here, right? Plant-based protein technology, fermentation-based technology. So any kind of technology solution, our observation is that the founders get a little too drawn into the scientific side of things, the technological science side of things, and often lose sense of what is really needed in the market. And sometimes they're so wrapped up, and there's a good word somebody used, in their own bubble, that they don't realize somebody's actually come up with similar or even better technology and gone ahead. So figuring out that they're connected to the needs of the market is really number 1 recipe for survival and sustenance. Team was absolutely correctly mentioned. Money was also rightly mentioned. And product quality maybe didn't get mentioned directly, but the whole core of the business is around this innovation. But the innovation has to be vetted. Now, for example, I know part of your criteria in this challenge is to have your solutions vetted through the labs, right? So all of that has to ensure that we are bringing quality that's sustainable and desirable. And marketing, of course, we often ignore. Have you heard the phrase "build it and they shall come"? Has anybody heard that phrase? Speak up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, what does it mean?
I mean, some people have so much conviction that this is definitely going to work without doing proper, voice of customer or the market study. And they believe that once it is ready, then customers will come.
Bang on. Absolutely. They're so convinced of the product or service or innovation or technology. They say, hey, the moment I have it, the world will come running to me. Maybe, but usually not. Because to be honest, the world doesn't even know that you exist and your technology exists unless you spread the word. So marketing is not about just PR, but making sure what you started earlier as an understanding of what the customer needs is the messaging that you are delivering through multiple channels. So folks, going back to the picture I shared earlier, there's many a risk down this path. But if we do the right things, many of these risks can be mitigated. And by the way, our tools today will help you hopefully avoid all of these. As I promised, we will leave you with some discussion and some tools in each of these areas. Okay. Design thinking is a biggish word, but again, almost as popular as, okay, I don't want to compare, but quite popular. Just like plant-based protein and smart protein is trending, so is design thinking for startups. Can anybody summarize what their understanding? What is design thinking in general?
I think design thinking is all about culmination of sort of the business idea with the humanities and serving the community through that art.
Okay, interesting.
Is it like जो दिखता है वो बिकता है?
थोड़ा और explain करो रिद्धि आप.
So basically, everything is in our mind. So when we want to put it out to the into the larger market, we need to think from the other perspective also. The appeal, like if it's a food product, the appeal, the taste, the smell, everything. Like it is a package.
Okay, ठीक है.
It's an amalgam of.
This is the overlapping.
Empathetic view.
Sorry.
Thinking from the customer's shoes with an empathy of a customer and looking at your solution, that will lead to more discoveries than thinking purely from a founder's perspective.
Okay, fair point.
Amalgam of different projects.
Projects, what does that mean, Jay?
Amalgam of different qualities to a product.
I'm not sure I understand. Expand on that, please.
Like as someone said about the food quality is food itself, like different texture and taste and different for the market need. For a specific market, they require different qualities of product.
Okay.
So it's an amalgam of different qualities to a specific product regarding a market.
Okay, got it. And we'll see that there's little more to that, but this is fair. There was somebody else with a comment.
This is the overlapping of desirability, compatibility, viability, feasibility. This is the overlapping purpose, and we need to maintain all the things while we are working on design thinking.
Okay, and we will of course talk about these, but you're right. It is the sweet spot is the overlap point. Shasi, anybody else?
When the idea is looked into from all aspect, 360 degree, from a consumer perspective, from the supply chain perspective, and to some extent the timing of the product or the services, when everything to be thought over with the definitely help of the specialist, I think then startup can become much more feasible.
Okay. So good summary, Ajay. So let me take it from here. So right, for actually design thinking is a concept that's applicable to anything. It is applicable to R&D projects, public service projects, social change projects, commercial projects, of course, high-tech projects. So it's a general concept that you can use to see if whatever project you're working on, whether it's new product or implementation of an existing project, are you on the right track And are all the right pieces coming together? And Ajay actually hinted there many pieces, but we'll talk about 4 critical pieces here. And the number one really is, whatever you're producing, is this what the customer needs? Remember we discussed earlier, number one reason for startup failure is that they start working on a technology that they think is cool, that they assume is needed, that they imagine will be the best in the world, but maybe isn't. So start with customer first and say, what do they desire? What are the problems they are facing? What are their struggles? Can we address it? And to address it, even before you address it, you've got to understand it, right? Empathy was a good word. So do we really understand our customers and their needs? Do we really have a handle on the technology we're going to use? We want to create the coolest meat alternative, but do we have the wherewithal? It could be theoretical knowledge, it could be industrial equipment, it could be labs to certify, it could be supply chain to take it to the market. I don't know. There's so many things, right? But is it all feasible? Can we really do it? Or are we just imagining without the support of science? The next part, of course, is for any solution to become practical, sustainable, stand on its own 2 feet. We have to look at some commercials. Is it commercially viable? Can we generate revenue? Whatever we're producing, right? Whether it's a meat substitute, or a milk substitute, or a new mouse. Will somebody pay us enough money so that it covers our costs and then some, hopefully? Very simple comment, but very big risk in many startups. They haven't quite thought through, haven't really done enough homework on this front. Last but not the least, do we have the right set of team and are they compatible? Compatible is both functionally compatible. Do we have technologists and a management person? Are our dynamics good? Are we open, honest, and can we trust each other? So the right team is also super critical when it comes to thinking about designing solutions. So design thinking is a concept. I like to think that it's a general framework of thoughtful design of anything, really. So how do you thoughtfully design a bridge, a solution to COVID problems, addressing the pollution in Delhi where I am, addressing the needs of pets or stray dogs in the streets, or addressing the homelessness situation, addressing the quality issues as it has happened over the last 2 years and the rates have dropped. Anything really. How can you do thoughtful design of a solution? Is this framework. So framework number 1 is this broad framework, very generic, very broad. And often people tell us, yeah, I get it, but how do I use it as a startup? So which is why while we'll share this with you, we're going to look at something a little more practical to take things forward. So you remember that picture with that young entrepreneur on a bike? One of the questions in his mind or her mind is, मैं क्या करूं? Idea है मेरे पास, ये idea भी नहीं है अभी idea बनाने की कोशिश कर रहा हूं मैं. How do I form an idea? And एक बार idea आ गया तो what do I do next? How do I convert this into a great product everybody loves? How do I convert it into a business that does remarkably well out there? People are not very sure. And you may think it's obvious, but it's not. So we've actually created a 5-level journey that anybody can take, irrespective of what kind of technology, what kind of product, what kind of domain, industry, whether you're a student or a working professional or an R&D scientist, you can actually follow this path to launch any kind of a product service into the market. 5 levels. And FYI, they're part of my book that was out last year. But this is based on working with startups. So very practical, very hands-on. We start with the basics of figuring out the problem that we are solving, right? Ideation and getting the right team on board. Then we look at the opportunity. Then we look at commercial feasibility. Then we look at how do we really develop a robust, scalable solution. And then, of course, how do we launch and grow the venture? So the journey is fairly well earmarked. And along the way, we have tools, action, specific steps. So you may have like 20 things to do at level 1 and 10 things to do at level 2, and then I don't know, 18 things to do at level 5. So we'll follow this framework, folks. This becomes our anchor for conversation today. Rather than talk about a lot of theoretical things, we will use this framework to make our conversation practical so that you walk away with some new stuff that you can try out tomorrow. So how do you really take an idea forward? Level 1, right? You're going to start at level 1. Not till 5, maybe till 4 we can hit, 3 or 4 we can hit today. Okay, what are those fundamentals that we must begin with? Number 1, for any startup, if you really want to de-risk it, if you really want to make sure that your idea sees the light of the day and becomes viable, attractive, successful, fall in love with the problem that you're trying to solve. Now, what does that really mean? Okay, let's try to understand 2 examples. And once again, please speak up. What problem is Uber trying to address? Problem. Anyone, speak up, please. Not solution. What is the problem that Uber is trying to address or was
easy and cheap transport? Like
that's
rather than
correct. I agree, but that's sounded solutionish, Nikhil.
Yeah.
What is the problem?
The problem was like if we wanted a cab before Uber, then we would have to walk down to a taxi stand, and the fares were not fixed. We didn't know how much they would charge from place A to place B. But now, before we book a cab,
I think to reduce the time in
Pratik, sorry, Pratik, if you don't mind, let's just have Nikhil finish his thought and then we'll listen to you. Go ahead, Nikhil.
Yeah, so basically now we know how much the fare is before we actually sit in a cab, how much time it probably might take, and like even the details of the driver for the safety of passengers.
Yeah, great thoughts, Nikhil. Thank you. Pratik, now, what problem is Uber or Ola or others solving?
I think the problem to solve is, the time it takes to, match the buyer and seller. In this case, the person who wants to, rent a taxi and someone who wants to drive it. So they just wanted to speed up that whole experience.
Okay, I'll take it, but was that the true problem? We'll get some more thoughts.
Can I say?
Yeah.
Well, that was not the true problem. The true problem is to efficiently use the resources.
Yep, we'll get there.
I think to not to reduce the number of car owners.
It can also be to
promote the
Ajay,
public transport.
Yeah, possibly as a side benefit, but I'm not sure they started a company with that objective, Ajay.
It can also be to provide a taxi whenever you want.
Yeah, that's right. Convenience.
There are also many.
Yeah, go ahead, Jay.
So there are also many cars which are empty, which they are just sitting. So the owner can lend that car out for the taxi drivers, and they can earn some side bucks from that.
Correct.
From a customer perspective, it is the economic, efficient, convenient, and safe way to go from point A to point B without owning a car.
Correct. So see, actually, it's very interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
And one more thing, maybe utilization of the infrastructure.
Yeah, correct. Correct, Ajay. Pratima?
One can book it whenever they want from anywhere, any place, no matter how remote it is. So there's
okay, convenience of getting a cab wherever you are. Okay, Pratima?
Common man's desire to travel in a car who doesn't own a car.
Interesting. That's also interesting, right? Can't afford, but can take some rides. Okay.
Economic benefit for the drivers who had no jobs before.
Okay, folks, excellent points, but I want to highlight 2 things, 2 patterns that I see. A, if you notice, our natural response is to start talking about the benefits first. When I say what is the problem Uber is solving, and you'll see that, and it's a mindset thing. It's not a personal thing. All of us work in that zone. We think of the features and benefit that Uber provide rather than the problem they were solving. And trend 1. Trend 2, you talked about many problems, and you're right. They first started with solving the basic problem. I need a cab here and now to go to point B. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. I shouldn't have to run around, find a taxi stand. I shouldn't have to haggle. it should arrive where I am. And actually, if you know, they started by first offering limousine style cars, the black cars, so-called. Right? Large cars were available to common people as and when they wanted. Of course, now it's become much more vast, wider fleet. But all the other benefits that you talked about, once they solved this problem, other benefits accrued. For example, saving on fuel, better income opportunity for the driver, and a whole host of other safety, perhaps, and all of that. But the basic problem they were solving was it was inconvenient to get a cab wherever you wanted. Very simple problem they were solving. It was, of course, magnified in its impact. Okay, something more relevant to this group. We discussed Ethan earlier. Which problem was Beyond Meat started to solve?
I can probably think of two. The first can be increasing cardiovascular risks, and the second is probably animal welfare, animal cruelty.
Okay, state these as a problem. Both of these as problems.
As a problem. So increasing cases of cardiovascular risks and people requiring a feasible alternative that tastes similar to what they are used to. So providing an easier switch from...
Yes, solution diya aapne. Problem क्या है? You're getting there.
Okay, the
planet health and the consumer health.
Climate change was the problem.
Climate was the main problem. Planet, animal welfare.
Population was the main problem.
Consumer health.
Consumer health was another one. Sorry, एक और आया था क्या था?
Population.
Population meaning?
Means that the company targeted the future population growth, and they analyzed that the calorie going per individual was reducing as the population grows. So meat, the Beyond Meat was made for that only, so that more production can be held on for the meat non-vegetarians, so that calories can be maintained as such for the current state.
Possibly, but I'm not sure that's a core problem they were solving. You guys have mentioned, you're kind of almost there. But what is the problem?
I think, land use.
Land use, again, extrapolated. It certainly was a problem. But what is the real... Okay, I'll give you a hint. What was the consumer behavior that was starting to irk people?
Mainly vegan, they have started. Mainly who eat veg portion. So the taste is the main.
Okay, taste, you're getting there.
Those who wanted to leave meat, they didn't have the option.
So now we're getting something.
Someone want to eat a burger, but there's a choice is there. Some want to eat it, so by this, it replaces the thing.
Correct. So again, some of these were solutions, but very basic problem. They said there are people out there who love the taste of meat, but feel guilty when they eat meat, and hence, can we solve this problem? Can we give them the taste and hopefully the nutrition without making them feel guilty? And that's where all these movements started around sustainability, health, planet, the whole host of issues that came afterwards. But the real problem was people said, and I feel bad. I'm not a vegan, but I'm maybe a preferred veg, right? I feel bad when I know I'm enjoying this burger. But I want to enjoy my burger though. I will not compromise. I want the burger to taste as good, but I don't want to rely on animals.
So, but when we talk about, let's say, health, it is very counterintuitive that when you see the ingredient list for the burger, it spans more than a page. So talking about health in this scenario, in my opinion, at least, isn't that valid? At least to be honest.
Possibly, it needs to be seen. Say some of the alternatives may not necessarily replace the health ratio that you're looking for, or the nutrient ratio you're looking for. That's of course is an issue. But a large trend towards plant-based protein, plant-based meats, but in particular, is about your sensitivity towards animals.
And I think
right.
So much talk about
quickly add a point to. Sorry, go Ajay, before you continue, just quickly adding to your previous point, Arman, right? Like compared to the alternative they had, like for example, if you think about the ingredient list of all the chemicals going into a meat, which is currently fed a lot of antibiotics, etc. Compared to that alternative of, for example, accounting the cost of health in terms of consuming carbohydrates or, fats, which are relatively complex. You can always add fiber, and those were some of the differentiators. So relatively, if you compare that to eating vegetables or fruits, obviously it's not the best alternative, right? Like if compared to directly eating plants, but compared to eating a hamburger from a fast food chain, which it was intending to replace in the first place, that point still works on a health basis, right? So that's the larger overview. And again, like with science and technology, their future versions would be significantly better, a relatively clean label as consumers demand. So yeah.
Correct. I totally agree. And that's also a reason that there's a huge scope of innovation that is still there that can provide cleaner alternatives. So it has pure-handed innovation, but a lot needs to be done. So I totally agree.
Correct. And we need to have a larger 360-degree view around this, right? Because as we come up with a plant-based solution, the net, let's say, carbon footprint of animal-based meat versus plant-based meat, the ability of this source of nutrition to sustain over billions of population, all of that has to be sorted, right? But sometimes you start with a small problem and then you address it as you go along in a much larger sphere.
I think that I was about to say that the talk against the meat production, the cost of meat on the carbon emission, as well as the cost of producing 1 kg of meat versus the production of the plant-based meat has already been started. And of course, the lifestyle disease are also one of the major point which basically are in the mind of a consumer as a individual, that he should leave meat. And third is that countries like India or another developing countries are started consuming meat in a much bigger way because of the upliftment in the economic situations. So the consumption of meat is going to increase, which can definitely create a long-term problems for the planet.
Correct.
So I think the people who have started consuming meat, who have been consuming meat, are now going back to eat the alternate. And best option is to give them the burger, but with a plant-based patty.
That's right. Absolutely. Well stated, Ajay. And you know what? This is the space organizations like the Good Food Institute operate in, because they look at the big picture and say, okay, for us to have a holistic and sustainable shift toward plant-based protein, you got to have these 15 things sorted. Just sorting one part of this problem may not be enough. And encouraging people to occupy those spaces, again, whether it is production, whether it is mobility, whether it's supply chain, whether it's pure packaging of these, refrigeration, this whole host of issues, right? How do you provide an end-to-end system? And so that overall, the ecosystem improves, as Ajay, you were saying, and others have said. Okay, we'll take some more example. In the interest of time, let me come to the last one. Anybody can comment. So women on the call, I'm not excluding you. If you know what Dollar Shave Club is about, you can certainly comment as well. What is the problem that they're trying to solve? Okay, hint, they were solving a problem that most men face.
Probably too expensive blades and the razors. Probably that.
Getting there. So expensive blades and razors, and
they provide every object in bulk, means package, means each and utensils you will be getting in one package.
ये solution आ गया जी. Problem क्या थी?
Otherwise, if the problem was that the individuals or the customers has to buy individually different things.
Possibly. Okay. So all the pieces required to do a good shave are not available. It was not convenient. It wasn't easy. And because it's an everyday thing, people often ran out of these. And on a day when you have a very important Zoom call or very important job interview, you realize you're out of blades, and then you can't really have that great shave. So they saw so the problem they were solving was that good blades were expensive and a hassle to procure on a regular basis. So now they kind of deliver it to you at your doorstep. So if you notice, folks, the trend here, the trend is, because we know these companies, we often tend to get into solution, and it applies to us. Whatever solution or idea you have in your head right now, right? Go back one step before going forward. That really, are we really addressing a real need? And a more fundamental question, Whose need is it? And we'll come to that in a minute. So we'll get there. I know you're all got your challenges and you're working on those, so we'll not go there. So part of level 1 also is not just understanding the problem you're solving. By the way, there's a saying in this space. We want to make sure we don't have a solution in our hand, and hence we're looking for a problem to solve. So solution shouldn't come before the problem. You have to make sure that there's a clear and crisp understanding of the problem that we're trying to solve. In this big space of plant-based proteins, we're going to occupy this space. This is the problem, and this is the matter of solution. Okay, and to do that, you need the right kind of people with you. Do you want to guess? Again, we've seen startups with 1 founder, we've seen startups with 5 co-founders. So it's not the number, but can you guess the kind of skills that are needed in an effective team? And by the way, sometimes they're co-founders, but sometimes they're also early hires and they become part of the core team. So a core team should have some basic skill sets. One person can do multiple skills, but broadly, what skills should they have? Any thoughts?
It's a compatibility.
Okay, so they should be compatible, but what skills should they bring to the table?
Business skill.
You're right. So they should be compatible, trust and transparent. I agree with you 100%. So what kind of skill? Jay is saying business skills, right? Is that what you said?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
Trustworthy.
Sorry?
Trust.
Trust. Okay, as an underlying component. I agree.
3 skills I think are: one is marketing and sales and marketing. Second one is innovation or the product technology. Third one is operations.
Okay.
And they should have the basic knowledge that what they are going to do actual. Without knowing the basic knowledge, they don't know, then they will fail.
Correct.
One more,
okay, good.
Right. So one more can be a common goal. A common goal. So if your goals are different, it will lead to infighting.
Correct. Okay, good point. So folks, actually the answer lies in, remember those design thinking 4 Venn circles I showed you as part of the Venn diagram? So you actually need people to address each of those. You can call them different names, but you need somebody who's outward facing, talking to the customer, talking to the market, keeping an eye on competition, maybe policy as well. So that's a marketing, right? The desirability wala circle that we talked about. Then you do need somebody who knows the domain or the technology you're working on and the industry that you're working in, right? Again, like I said, this could be one person with many, but usually we like people not to wear too many hats. We need somebody who understands operations, was the word used earlier, which is fair, but certainly to understand the economic side of things. How is this engine going to run and sustain itself financially? And last but not the least, you talked about alignment on mission, trust, transparency, compatibility were great words you used. You need at least one person to act like this human glue to bring it all together. Again, it doesn't have to be HR per se, anyone, and it could be the marketing lady who's also the human glue, and that's fine. But when you create your team of co-founders and core team members, please try in your mind to create a more balanced team. You want to guess, in most startups, which of these 4 is very well addressed and which one is least addressed? Do you want to guess? Most addressed, most well addressed is? Most teams are good in this area. Which area of these 4?
Some comments are coming in, and I'm going to promote a few more people on.
Sure. So yeah, I'm seeing combination of technology and marketing. Actually, again, based on our experience of startups and incubators, usually the technology and the domain is sorted. And that's one of the reasons. Gitanjali, you want to speak?
Yes, I was just going to say the same thing, that based on the kind of company, most startups, at least in India, I'd say the technology is where they remain strong. But when it comes to the business side of the things, I think they start doing it only after the product is launched and the company has kind of passed through a lot of stages that we'd expect them to.
Good point, Gitanjali.
In our SciTech the technology forward nature of it also means that a lot of people are also lacking in the domain expertise in technology because of infrastructure and skill sets as well. So somebody with a food tech and agri tech or biotech background, maybe who's graduating, might think that simple things like spray drying and packaging are like a norm, right? But that's a big challenge to begin with. So leave apart high moisture extrusion, fermentation, and cultivation of cells and all of those kind of technology areas. So I'll just adding that to Gitanjali's point as well, though, for the specific sector in India, though.
Correct. Good point. So technology itself is fairly nuanced and multifaceted, right? You got to make sure you cover all the ground there. But the point was well made. So usually the technology domain is fairly well sorted. Unfortunately, marketing starts later. And I'm saying unfortunately because ideally it should start day zero along with everything else. And the other issue we see is usually in startups who have kind of figured things out and starting to now build traction and grow, the human component actually starts to misfire. Often misalignment, expectation issues, mission was the word that was used, or the goals, the word was used. So some disconnect around that starts to happen usually. So ideally, you should keep an eye on all of these as you start your venture. Now, you may not always have the team with you. So what do? How do you augment? Let's say you have a great marketing co-founder and a great agri-tech guy who knows his domain in and out. What do you do with the others? What are some of the ways in which you can plug some of the gaps, at least temporarily? Let's say you don't have anybody who understands P&Ls and cash flows and fundraise. What do you want to do?
Look into people that believe in you and like to work with you and can fill the gap.
Okay. In terms of these people are what, hires? Who are these?
No, not hires. People you can bring into the team.
Maybe initially outsource the.
One is a concept of a part-time, CXOs. The other thing is that we hire somebody mid-level, and depending on the contribution, you can elevate them to co-founder.
Yeah.
In my opinion, but this is a very ad hoc solution, maybe in the starting stages, like you said. If it was me, at least for the starting stages, if I don't have the resources to hire somebody, I'd probably take advice on financial management or marketing from my advisor or people, who are the mentors of my company or investors.
Yeah. So all good points. Starting with, if you know there's a gap, first of all, by the way, you must do an exercise, and I'll share a tool with you later, how you can actually do this very quickly and objectively. You must know what your gaps are, right? Otherwise, we kind of put our blinders on and hope for the best. Once you know the gap, there are many ways to solve it. Of course, finding co-founders through your network, hiring people, consultant, and as Gitanjali said, I think in the end, your mentors can be a great source of this. Hence, selecting mentors is very critical. Just because a mentor is available is no reason for you to go to that person. You have to first figure out what is my need. Where do I need the most amount of capability augmentation in? And A and B is can the mentor provide that? And then C, of course, does the mentor's view of what I'm trying to do in life, my mission, if you will, my passion, if you will, does it align? There's a very basic question that many startups don't, basic homework that many startups don't do. Just because a mentor is well known and marquee doesn't mean he or she is good for you. And by the way, most mentors who are that well known are super busy and probably will not give you time. So be very careful. Mentoring is very attractive proposition, but you must think through it. And which is why, folks who are organizing these workshops and hand-holding you and providing mentors would have done their homework to get a list of mentors available to you who kind of meet some basic criteria. Okay, so folks, we're going to keep going, and guess we've only done level 1 so far. So let me quickly summarize what we've done. Level 1 is the foundational, because it's one foundational element of your journey. It starts by saying, do you really understand the problem you're trying to solve? Really spend the time, do the homework. Don't jump into a solution. Don't start doing experiment. Don't start sitting in lab. Don't start coding till you figure out what you're doing and how it's going to be a little different than what's out there. 1. 2, as you embark on the journey, get a sense of resources. We didn't talk about it, but financial resources also a conversation you should have at that stage. We talked largely around skills. So do you have the skills, knowledge, team, funding, and other resources to go on the journey. Do that homework, and wherever the gaps are, then look for ways to address those gaps. If you've done that, you kind of ready to build on top of that. And that's the level 2. And the fundamental, well, there's many other things at level 2. We will talk fundamentally about, we discussed earlier, being empathetic towards our customers. So the whole journey begins by, we talked about problems earlier. Well, every problem is in the context of who the person is. So a more fundamental question actually is not what problem, but who are we targeting? Who is facing, sorry, let me restate. Who is our customer? What problems are they facing? And hence the solution that we provide. So let's take some examples. Who do you think is Byju's customer? Anyone?
It is ideally the student, but in a way they're pressuring the parents.
Okay. Students, parents. Interesting. Is it both? Can it be both?
I think, in my opinion, I would say the people who don't currently align with their existing educational system, it could be school or college, and they feel like they need to find an outside source to get what they want.
Interesting. So parent, child, school, coaching center, tuition teacher. I don't know.
End
Okay,
consumer,
so
end
I'm
consumer is the child, and the target are the parents.
Okay, I was deliberately not using those terms away, but yeah. So for now, I'm just generically saying who's the customer. It looks like there are many, but you may be able to attach a separate tag to each of those. Abhay, absolutely on the dot. We'll come to that. Let's take one more example, maybe. So Zoho is an ERP package that companies use, right, to manage operations, and Zoho People is an ERP package that helps them manage their talent. So recruitment, performance management, all that stuff. Who are the customers? And it's a B2B. Who is Zoho's customer?
Small to mid-sized enterprises or businesses.
Okay. And within a small to mid-size, who might be actually, in terms of roles, who might be the users or customers?
For CRM-based systems, sales and marketing teams.
Marketing teams. For people team, might be HR teams. Okay. Does a CFO have any role in this, Abhay? In saying that we should get Zoho people, or we should get Oracle people, or PeopleSoft or whatever?
Yes, they will be the decision makers.
Possibly.
So in a B2B sales process, there are multiple decision makers.
That's
involved.
right. Okay, we'll come to that. So who is our customer? Many, perhaps was a Byju's answer. Many, certainly in a more B2B context. Okay. So for a product like the Pedigree, and pet lovers, dog lovers, please respond. Who is the customer?
The pet owners.
Okay. Anybody else? What about the poor dog? Who's the dog in this relationship?
End consumer, but not
End
the
consumer.
target.
Okay. So folks, and this is exactly the clarification I want to make. When we talk about customers, the word of, if you look at traditional MBA definition of customer, somebody who pays you, etc., it's a lot more nuanced in today's world. And you have to figure out customer from different lenses. What are those lenses? I'm going to share with you 3 or 4 lenses right now. Who will actually use our solution? So in Byju's, it is a child. And it's important to know who will use, because then the solution is made keeping their interest in mind. Similarly, if you don't keep in mind what dogs need from a nutritional point of view and aesthetic point of view and taste point of view, you will never be able to deliver a good product. So who is actually going to consume or use your product? Who will pay you? And usually is, and not really, but sometimes it's not the consumer. Dog certainly is not paying you. A 10-year-old child is certainly not paying you, but the parent is, right? So for Byju's, it's as important to focus on the child as a customer as it is to the parents. And by the way, if you've seen the ad that Shah Rukh Khan runs for Byju's, who does Shah Rukh Khan usually talk to in the ad? Parents normally, right? You see that? हम अपने बच्चों को ये करने नहीं देते, वो नहीं करने देते, because they know parent is a decision maker. Ultimately, it's a parent's wallet that they're targeting. in all situations, but certainly in a B2B, who influences? So going back to Byju's, maybe the teacher is an influencer. Maybe the child's school teacher / tuition teacher is an influencer. Maybe the CFO in Zoho in a B2B is an influencer. And sorry, go ahead.
Yes, sorry to interrupt, sir, but just to add one point here, it can also be that the advertisements that they run, they create a sense of urgency in the minds of parents that their children might be left out of opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's marketing, right? You create a FOMO. That's a marketing message. But the more critical comment, Arman, there is that they're making parents feel that pain. So they hardly run the kind of ad they will run to attract kids will be, hey, it's fun, it's animation, it's graphics, you will learn, but you won't realize you're learning kind of message. Whereas for parents, the messaging is, hey, invest in your child's future. You want to make sure they learn, you want to make sure they stay ahead, etc., etc. So marketing message might change, but they completely recognize they have to target both parents and the kids. And as I think Abhay was saying earlier, in a B2B situation, please, if you're thinking of going B2B, please understand the selling process is a lot more complex. Not difficult, but complex. Where there are multiple people who are involved in saying, okay, here's a check. As opposed to a pedigree where as long as you appeal to a pet owner, they can buy it or in a store, a corporate decision takes multiple people to sign off. So just be aware of that. So a fundamental message here is, folks, identify who your customer is and kind of nuance the customer based on their relationship with you and your product. They may be users, but not payers. Maybe payers and users. They may be pure influencers and not anything else. That matrix we can help you with. And really to get into the mind of a customer is step one. If you remember in design thinking, the first circle we talked about was desirability of customers. If we don't understand our customers, we're starting on a wrong footing. There'll be tons of going back. I can almost guarantee. Take the time to understand who your customers are. And here's a framework we've been using for many, many years. It's called knowing your customers. And there's a reason why KNOW. So what we try to do, and this is an example I'm going to take throughout this session. It's about a fintech startup called Savard. So they actually went out and talked to more than 100 potential customers. Even before a single line of code was done, even before anybody was hired, there's just two co-founders. They went towns, villages, cities. Actually, 100 is not doing justice. They talked to over 400, 500 people. But anyway, they went out and say, hey, what are your problems? And this fintech is all about investing and creating wealth. And they figure out that, the real target customer for them are urban males, family with 1 or 2 kids, certain level of income, and who really want to do a lot of socializing and achieve a lot of growth in their professional life. So that's the kind of profile they created. That's the key. They understood the life of their customer. And then they say, what are your needs? Needs. So this startup is all about, let's say, stock market investment. The need is not in the, hey, do you want to buy stocks? Do you want to buy tech stocks, or do you want to buy FMCG stock? The need is, why are you in the stock market? They would say, well, I want to grow wealth. Why? Because I want to send my kids abroad for studying, or I want to buy a house, or I want to retire when I'm 45, whatever. So what is the need to go to the market, stock market, instead of keeping the money parked in, let's say, low return FDs? And if that's their need, what's stopping them? Most of them said, hey, stock market is very complex, convoluted. I don't have time. I have a day job. I can't track stocks, and do buy, sell, etc. And every time people keep giving tips to me, I don't know who to believe. So is there a way I can go to somebody who's reliable? It's tech based. I can just tell them what I want and they kind of automate it for me. I can keep an eye on things, but is there a solution in which I can make decent money in the market without investing, by investing disproportionately small amount of time? That was their want. So when they did these conversations, here is the framework that emerged. Do we know our customer? Where do they live? How old are they? Are they married? What kind of job they are in? What do they want from them? What do they need in their life? And what kind of wants or desires they have from the solution that they're trying to bring. So this exercise, I'm often asked the question, how many potential customers should you talk to? First classify your customer in terms of buyers, users, paying users, free users, all that stuff. A rule of thumb. It's not a rule. It's not a hard rule, but guideline, I would say. If it's a B2C business, talk to at least 30 to 40 potential customers. If it's B2B, talk to at least 10 such enterprises to figure out who they are and what they want in life before developing your solution. Questions, comments? So this is yet another framework we're going to share with you, the No framework for developing customer personas. Okay. I know all of you are going to make some kind of a pitch in the end. But more than pitch, I know all of you want to take your ideas forward at any point, whether you're talking to investor, partner, mentor. You will learn, you have to learn to be able to describe what you're doing in, I don't know, 30 seconds. So may I ask for a volunteer? Anyone?
Yeah, somebody's raised their hand as well. So let me quickly bring them on. Go on, Rami.
At FastTrack, we have developed a truly sustainable protein ingredients to help manufacturers, food manufacturers, provide their consumers with.
Rami, sorry. Let me just pause you. So can you just follow the flow here? So start by first the customer segment, and then follow the problem they're facing, etc. So just follow the structure here, please, Rami.
I'm so sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
Food manufacturers.
For food manufacturers, yeah.
Yes. Who need to produce better food products.
Okay.
But can't find ingredients with triple impact.
Okay.
Our flavor enhancer and protein isolate deliver that triple impact.
Better than?
Okay, offers that triple impact, and it's better than the alternatives in the market because it offers that triple impact. Like it doesn't leave one behind.
Making the customers feel
wholesome.
Excellent, Rami. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very crisp. And I think in less than 30 seconds, we got a sense of what you're doing in life. Great. But just curious, have you practiced this before? You're very good.
Yes, sir.
Well done. Good for you. Anybody else? Anybody else? Just go through it. We'll give you feedback.
Anybody wants to give it a shot, especially people in track 2? Just raise your hand. Just give it a shot. It would be fun. Anybody existing? Arman, Ronak, Gitanjali.
And don't worry, it has no bearing on your final pitch.
Yeah.
Make an attempt. No? Okay. So we will of course share this template.
Gitanjali, go on. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think I have all the answers yet, but I could just try. So our product is for customers who want to include more plant-based food in their diet. So basically flexitarians. And then I think I covered for and who.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. But they're unable to find such alternatives for fish in the Indian market just yet. And even if they do, it's all highly processed. Our product, we're trying to create with novel ingredients and kind of cut down on the downstream processing as much as we can. And then in terms of offers, okay, in terms of benefits, just like we addressed, the uniqueness is basically the novel ingredients and the cutting down on the processing. And better than, there are not a lot of competitors in the Indian market right now. And then making them feel, what can I say? Make them feel like they are creating a change in their personal personal life, plus for the world in terms of climate change or for the animals in both ways.
Perfect. Great, Gitanjali. Thank you. Well done. Well done. And folks, again, thank you so much for volunteering. But my strong advice to you is when you go back after the workshop with yourself, with your friends, with your founders, run through this exercise and be as crisp as you can. And again, it's not, of course, it'll help you pitch better eventually, but it'll help you get a better sense of who you are and what you want to do as part of your initiative. It'll help you get clarity on your business and your idea. So great, thank you again. We'll keep going because you crossed level 2. We have to look at one framework at least at level 3, and then we'll build on that. Okay, so the 3 words right now in front of us, what do they mean? So what's a business plan? Quick one. Let's pick up pace a bit, folks. What is a business plan? Anyone? Speak is better. Business plan? Anyone? No?
An ideation or proposal of an ideation.
Okay, proposal of an ideation.
Which can be executed as a executed as a model for the further step.
Okay, so okay, little more, build on that a bit. So business plan usually talks about how you can take a certain innovation, a product or a service, and how will you, remember the word execution we discussed earlier, how will you execute to make sure it becomes real and becomes a viable venture. So usually it has elements of product innovation, product development, product delivery. It has marketing, sales, including finances, maybe projections for the next 1, 2, 3, 4 years. What kind of revenue, what kind of profit, all of that stuff, fairly detailed. And we don't build a lot of those these days, so don't worry. We do, but not to that extent. What is a business model? Quick, anyone? Business model. Okay, it's actually how you make money. So I'll give you a quick example. Amazon's business model is to charge the vendors some fee for having their product listed and for marketing them on their platform. Netflix is a subscription model. They charge you a fixed fee per month, per year, irrespective of how much you consume. So Amazon is per transaction. Netflix is across the board for a month or so. So different flavors of how you generate revenues. Now, business model canvas really is what we want to talk about, because rather than get into a 20-page business plan, etc., we're going to get into one pager that describes your business or your idea or your innovation. And why is that important? Because, you know, just like the blueprint that an architect prepares of a building or a house before you actually even go digging and doing the first layer of bricks, a business model canvas is that kind of view of your venture. What are you doing? How wide, how deep, how big? What are the moving parts? What are the critical pieces in it? What are those pieces that are more foundational than others? So all that stuff comes together in, like I said, one page. And the business model, just as an FYI, the industry, if you will, started with Oscar Wilder's book that came out almost 15 years ago, the Business Model Canvas, the original, classic, great. Ash Maurya modified it. There is a lean canvas. And the one we're going to look at today is called Startup Operating Canvas, which is like the new one, the newer avatar, and the one we've been using for the last many, many years. Okay, so here's what the canvas is. This is your business. It's an operating canvas, which means whether you're doing an innovation or a business, whatever you're building needs to be alive. How do you execute it? And we're going to take the same Savard FinTech example. So don't worry, there's too many boxes. I'll walk you through it. Everything starts left to right, and that's one of the differences with the other models. You go sequentially, start left and keep moving right slowly. The first thing in any venture, startup, business is start with the customer. Who are you addressing? The same customer that we discussed earlier. What is their persona, age, geography, needs, wants, lifestyle, marital status? You just, hopefully to a large extent, figure out who your customer is going to be. That's the persona, and you start from there. And one of the first things you do after that really is, if this is their need for let's say the fish alternative we talked about, or the stock market example that I was building on, what kind of solution are we going to do? Very summary view here. And by the way, you can literally use Post-its for this, and that's why I'm showing this here. What is our product service? Can I define it broadly? How is it competing with other options? In this case, banks and the other stock market players. Who are the competition for this? And how am I going to, this third bit here, how am I going to reach my customers? Is it going to be Facebook? Is it going to be conferences? Is it going to be retail stores? Is it going to be Google ads? How does the world know I exist? How does the world know I have the best beyond meat, if you will, right? So who is the customer? What is my solution for them, which addresses their needs? How is it better from others? And how am I going to reach them? Very fundamental question you must address. Again, you don't need to write 10 pages, 2 lines, 3 bullets is more than enough for now. We'll keep tweaking it as you go along. Okay, here's an interesting conversation that's connected to this. What is the difference in the left text and the right text? This is an iPod, of course.
Left is a data point, right is more, it's more practical.
Okay, almost there, Arman, little more.
Functional benefit versus emotional benefit.
Functional versus emotional, you're getting there. Arman plus Ajay. One more.
User point of view.
Which one is a more user point of view?
The right one.
The right one, absolutely. So actually, the right answer is combination of these. So the right one is a benefit that somebody enjoys. Left is a feature of this device. And there are many features and many benefits. I'm just giving you one. So most innovators and startups end up starting from left. They're thinking about product, innovation, testing, features. But please remember, customers buy benefits a lot more than they buy features. Look at this one. Again, Swiggy's been doing the rounds, right? Groceries in 30 minutes, etc., etc. Of course, it saves time, but what is the real benefit? The real benefit for somebody who's really busy is that, listen, I don't have to go to the market in this pandemic and kind of shop around and all that. It's hassle-free stuff, so we can have enjoyable dinners as a family. Feature versus benefits, and it's a mental shift, and it's not just marketing, folks. If you think customer will actually go right to left, and you need to do that for your product. But here's, because this is a fundamental statement. What is it saying to you? What does a scientist think like? A scientist thinks like the stuff at the top. An entrepreneur thinks, usually, okay, no judgment, but usually thinks like the statement at the bottom. Do you see the difference is more than subtle? It's not just about our innovation, but how the innovation changes the world and how the innovation adds value in the lives of our potential customers. Very fundamental mindset change that our canvas captures through this section called differentiated benefits. What is the benefit to the customer and how is it better than others? Right? We discuss competition. We are actually changing their lives in a way that's far more superior than ABC, whatever that ABC is. Got to be very clear about it. And by the way, you can't do that if you haven't talked to enough customers. Then it's just theoretical. I'm sitting at my desk and imagining how the world will be, and imagining what the customer will want, and imagining how happy they will be in looking at our solution. Very important. And we're getting into the heart of the business model. And actually, for most early stage startups, if you can do all that I've shown and maybe just one more, you'll be fairly sorted. I'll tell you what that other one is. And for that, we'll do a little quiz/game. Okay, folks, you see well-known brands on the right. I'm going to show you a revenue model. And you have to tell me which of the ones on the right this fits the best. Which one of these brands is mostly a franchise business?
McDonald's.
McDonald's, correct?
MACD.
Correct. And there might be many, but primarily, yeah, we all recognize MACD to be a franchise. Which one is a big time freemium on the list?
YouTube.
Does Dropbacks have a freemium as well?
So there are, but they suffice their business by ads. YouTube.
No, but I'm just wondering. I think YouTube has a freemium. Dropbox has a freemium. Netflix also has a freemium, no? Does it?
Netflix, I doubt so.
No.
So 1 month or 3 months free premium only. After that,
no, I'm saying can you access some content on Netflix if you without paying anything, or you have to pay it?
No, we have to pay from the starting.
We have to pay for 3 months. I think they give free. After that, they credit out.
Okay. So many people are kind of playing with this model of freemium, whereas give users either limited time access to full content or give them less content free and 10% content, and for the 90% they have to pay. So many people out there, right? Google does it, Gmail does it. Subscription service is an easy one. Netflix, yeah.
Netflix. YouTube one also, sir.
YouTube also does subscription. Yep.
Yes, sir.
Yep. Service aggregator.
Uber,
absolutely. Service providers coming together. This is very interesting. Hook and bait. Very interesting concept.
I think it's Hewlett Packard.
It is, Rami. You want to guess why they in fact started this?
Because you have to buy the printer, but then you have to pay for the cartridges.
Excellent. So while every business in some way is a hook and bait, HP is kind of a pioneer in this. So if you look at the, since Rami gave the example of a printer, a good laser printer is like, I don't know, 2,000 rupees in India, right? Decent. And how much is the cartridge if you were to get an original one?
650, 620.
650, 700.
Think about it. So in 3 cartridges, you paid more than the printer. And often HP is selling the printer at a loss, hoping that they'll make a lot more money on the cartridges from them. So they hook you with the product, and then you are attached to that bait. To that bait of buying that refill every year. Of course, you can do secondary market refills, etc. But that's their model out there. If anybody's used coffee machines, Nespressos, similar model. Machine is really cheap, $60, $70, $80, and each pod is like, I don't know, $1.50. Coffee pod.
One more example for hook and bait can be PlayStation, because it's also sold at a loss and then they make
good one. Absolutely right, Arman. Absolutely. E-marketplace, obvious one.
Alibaba.
And who makes money from advertisements? Most everyone today now.
Twitter.
YouTube, Twitter.
Yeah, a lot of them today. And who sells data? Maybe not sell, but let's say uses data to further their business.
Twitter.
Yeah, many actually. I agree. Twitter does it. But many people do that. They either do that to promote their own business or their secondary business.
Basically, all of them do that to enhance their business capability and reach.
Yeah. Now, of course, the laws have become tighter, so many don't sell the data, but otherwise they were actually selling data willy-nilly out there to third parties. So, folks, this is just a small example of companies who charge their customers in a different way. The most traditional way is, right? You buy something at 80 rupees and sell it at 100. Most traditional. But there are many other ways of making money, is the point I'm making here. From franchise to give the product as free, right? Look at Google. We are all using Google as consumers. We don't pay anything for searches, right? Because they're making enough money from companies who are putting their ads as part of their search campaigns. So figure out a way that works best for you. For most startups, we recommend start with maybe 2 or 3 and see what works. Don't presume one will work really well. Usually start with 2, 3 and they figure out, one of those actually gives them about 60, 70, 80% of the revenue that others don't. But that's something to be figured out. If you know it, great. If it works, fantastic. but be open to a little bit of experimentation here. And that's the box we're going to fill right here, this one. How are you going to generate revenues and for your business? Or how are you going to price your product? As I said, if you figure this side, this half of the canvas, you're fairly sorted. And again, it won't happen in one instance. You'll put up some post-its, revise it, tear it up, start afresh, and that's okay. And you're going to do it per customer segment coming in here. After that, of course, you also need to worry about the team, physical, tangible, intangible resources that you need, partners to develop the product, test the product, validate the product, and take it to the market perhaps. How are you going to get funding for all of this, cash management, how are you going to make sure you run as a system, and of course, lots of KPIs to make sure you're on track. So if you're an early stage startup, focus more on the left side and get that clarity. As you get into your launch, the right side becomes a lot more relevant. So don't get overwhelmed by these 10, 12 things. Answer those fundamentally, fundamental 6, 7 questions on the left, and I think you'll be quite okay. Questions, comment. I know I'm rushing through. I will share this slide, these slides with you as an example, and you can build on it. Any question or comment?
So I actually had a question regarding the Swiggy example that you took.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so in the recent past, we've seen the trend of 10-minute delivery with the examples of Grofers rebranding as Blinkit and Zepto coming on. So in my opinion, isn't that what those kinds of companies are targeting? So that can also be on the right-hand side.
Right. So just as a context, you're right. They've figured out how to do the delivery that used to take, let's say, 2 hours 2 years ago, and 30 minutes, let's say 6 months ago, is now happening in 15 minutes. Why? Because they figured out their own networks and supply chains. They figured out the system of pickup and drop and all that, and tuned it over the last few years. For a customer, what is the benefit of a grocery in 30 minutes or 10 minutes? You tell me. For others, is there a difference in your benefit?
To be very honest, no.
Okay, let's hear others. Do you care if your groceries come in 2 hours, 30 minutes, 10 minutes?
Yes.
Do you care?
Yes.
Yes,
If
sir.
I need something
10
right
minutes.
here, right now, it might take 10 minutes for me to get ready and reach downstairs to pick the stuff up.
Yeah. So for urgent needs, groceries or even food for that matter, right? Pre-cooked food that Zomato is another promise. For urgent needs, spontaneous urges, if you will. I don't know how many people just show up at each other's place these days, but those kind of things, perhaps, yes. My view also is that many people don't care, honestly, whether it's 10 minutes or 30 minutes, but the ability to distinguish themselves in the market on the basis of that is the game that they play. Because the market has become crowded, right? There's so many grocery delivery guys. How do you differentiate yourself? They play on an edge, which may resonate with some customers, but not others, but that's a differentiation. That's a positioning that they're doing. Is it truly getting them that access to the market? I don't know yet. I really don't know. But a lot of these are marketing and positioning stances as opposed to just making a lot of fundamental change. I also think a lot of technology change has to be done, technology and logistical support, for them to be able to do this, right? You got to have the right inventory, you got to have the right location closest to the customer, and you got to have somebody who can actually pick and drop within the time zone. If you remember many years ago, I don't know how many people recall, Domino's had this guarantee, right? If you deliver your pizza in 45 minutes, was it? Or it's free? Certainly in the US, that campaign ran.
30 minutes.
30 minutes? 30 minutes
Yes,
for free,
sir.
yeah? And that was a big deal. Big deal those days because the booking was done over a phone. There were no Zomatos. There were no aggregators of pickup and drop service and door dashes and all that. Big deal. So they innovated and they took it to the market, and that became their edge. People preferred them sometimes less for the quality of the pizza, more for the fact that it'll just arrive very quickly. No hassle. So you think about it. My recommendation also is anything that is true benefit to a customer, let that be your first card that you play. positioning, marketing, branding, messaging can continue happening thereafter. But really focus on building, and that's been the statement. I may not have used that word in the entire session today. How do you create a fundamentally high quality solution? How do you innovate so that your innovation is a wow? And similarly, how do you create a business that is fundamentally strong? That actually you don't have to chase funding, funding comes to you. And that funding could come because you are actually selling great stuff, there's revenues, or because investors are just bowled over by you and your business. So less on gimmicks, more on fundamental has been our session today. I'm going to move fast, folks, because I'm going to answer the question I myself raised earlier on. Very easy to get started with an idea, a lot of excitement, a lot of energy. Often the energy goes down. Often people feel confused. They don't know what's going on. They don't know whether they're doing the right thing. They're having difficulty getting feedback from mentors or even finding mentors. So is there like a GPS for startups? And I'm going to share a service that's freely available to all of you right away. And it's called Soar. It's a service to help you soar. Soarhigh.in is the website. It helps you understand numerically how ready you're to launch a venture or launch a product or launch an innovation. You get a number like the 62%. It'll also tell you how good do you look to an investor. If you do answer a few questions, it's a 10-minute exercise. It'll tell you, hey, from an investor's perspective, you're very attractive 90% or not so much 30%. You'll also get a feedback on key areas we discussed earlier: marketing, sales, product. How good are you, and you'll get some scores there. Very interesting. It'll also give you data comparing you with others in the same industry. So is your launch index better than others? Are you more attractive than others, less than others? Great. So all of this is analytics, but it's not just analytics. You will also get honest feedback on what you're doing well. But perhaps the most important bit, you will also get recommendations on what you can do tomorrow. So I strongly urge all of you, like I said, it's free tool built for the community based on all of our years of experience, to go to soarhigh.in. That's the website. You will get an instant report in, 10 odd minutes. There's one for early stage launch and there's one for growth as well. But for now, given the profile of the folks on the call, you can go to the site and take the launch assessment and get those results. That should give you a sense of where you are, and you can keep taking it every month. It's free. You can just keep going back and say, hey, I was 62 last month. Hey, I've become 75 now. I'm 90 now, so on and so forth. We are touching level 4. Is there interest in looking at this? I know you're doing pitching. How many of you will actually raise funds in the next 1 year?
We are.
You are?
Can you raise hands, everybody who are looking to raise funds in the next, say, an year, from the attendees as well? Maybe it's research funds or venture funds.
Yeah. Beyond the monies from the competition, are there many? Are there some? Give me a feel, Shadul.
Yeah.
I'd say like 10-15% actually looking to raise money in the next 1 year.
Okay, so I'll touch a little bit on it. I know you have a session on pitching later. We also do pitch preparation and mock pitching. I don't know, Shadul, we can discuss it offline if that support is needed. But let me answer a question. What is the business model for SoarHigh? Great question, Nikhil. It's not freemium, it is free. It is built for the community, by the community. So there is no charge at all for SoarHigh. Okay, so I'm going to give you like a little preview. There's a much larger conversation we can have around pitching and investor preparation and all of that. But I'm going to share with you my journey as an angel investor. How does investor look at things? And of course, you can also see what you need to look at. So, we've seen, have you been seeing the Shark Tank, India, Shark Tank, US?
Yes.
Yeah.
Some of us, yeah. Okay, I don't know whether you like Shark Tank India or not. Any thoughts?
I think it's good. I mean, yeah, a little over the top, but sure, it's definitely there in terms of getting what the end customers like Indians would like to know about entrepreneurship as a concept. I think it's doing a good job in that.
Yeah. To that, I agree with socializing the concept a lot, promoting youngsters to come forward, actually promoting everyone of all ages. But just one caveat, unlike a lot of these shows where, you see checks being exchanged, on the spot, 10 lakh, 20 lakh, 50 lakh, 10 million, 1 million. In reality, investors don't write checks on the spot. I've not seen a single instance, right? From thousands of such conversations. So how does it really happen in real life? You could be pitching like you will do in this competition, right? Top 10, I guess, right? Shardul are pitching?
Yeah, top 10 from each track. So total top 20.
Top 20 will pitch, and you'll pitch to, partners, investors, corporates, etc. And then maybe some good partnerships come out of that. Some funding, of course, is to the finalists. But usually what happens when you take part in such competitions, even if you do one-to-one, right? When you pitch the first time, I'm telling you how an investor looks at it. The investor looks at a pitch, which is 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, 3 to 5, 6 minutes. Shardul, how long is the presentation going to be for the finale?
5 to 7 minutes and 10 minutes of Q&A followed by it, or 7, 8 minutes.
Yeah. So that's the kind of time you get, right? And think about it, an investor is sitting through 20 such presentations in 2 hours, 3 hours, or maybe 10 presentations in an hour. So it's hard to keep their attention. And you've done a good job if after that you pitch 5 minute, 10 minute pitch, the investor says, hey, that looked like a nice idea. I like the way these guys presented. Let's talk to them. Your job is done. You did a great job. You didn't get a check on the spot. Chances are nobody will. But that's good. Your job should be to get the next meeting with the investor. That's what pitching is all about. That's why we say practice your pitches and the elevator pitches. Impress them with not just your product. Remember I said product, the problem comes before the solution. So these guys know their stuff. They've nailed the problem. They may be working on a solution, and I like the way they're doing things. That's all you need to do. Usually it follows with 3 or 4 meetings afterwards to figure out, yeah, idea is good, product is good, team seems to be decent. Let's see how innovative their solution is, how different it is from others. Can they really make money? Can they make a business out of it? Even if they don't want to make a business, can they license an IP out of this? So usually 3 to 5 meetings after the first one. It's a meeting for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 1 hour these days on Zoom. Followed by another set of 3 to 4 meetings. The lawyers get involved, CAs get involved. Hey, let's look at the documentation. Let's look at due diligence. Term sheet gets issued usually stage 2, early stage 3. And usually that's where the final number crunching happens. Is it a worthwhile business for us to invest in? Usually from top to bottom, I don't know, these days, 3 to 6 months, 6 to 10 meetings. Again, I'm not scaring you, I'm preparing you. What is seen as the tip of the iceberg is just the pitch, but there's a lot of groundwork that needs to happen behind the scenes. And you should know this. This is how investors proceed, top to bottom. But guess what? You build your business bottom up. You address the question that an investor is going to ask, not because the investor is going to ask it, because that's the only way to build a good business. Have a good look at bottom to top. Have a great product. High on innovation. Patent it. Build your moat. Figure out how you're going to go to the market. Figure out how you're going to make money off it. Make sure you, out of the 10 billion market, you're going to corner, I don't know, 500 million market in 5 years. How? And have a great team doing it, executing it day in and day out, and show that you're strongly connected to your customer and their problems. That's the only way to build a business. And folks, that's all we've been sharing with you. From level 1, which is about problem identification, teaming. Level 2 was about customer empathy. 3 was about business modeling. We really talk about these pieces only in that order. So that's all I'm going to talk about in this session around investing. Pitching is not about PowerPoint. Okay, let me quickly make that comment. You can spend hours, you can outsource it. People who do this for a living, right? You can pay somebody 10,000, 20,000 rupees to make a PPT. I'm not sure that's a good idea. I'm okay with very simple PPT, but know your business, know your customer, know your space. And if you're able to convey some of these messages in your pitch, a lot of the other stuff will come through conversations thereafter. Okay, we're gonna try to wrap it up, folks, because I really want to thank you again. I know it's hard these days to stay on these calls. We are at the 2-hour mark or so. So thank you. It is Friday night. So okay, let's close it with, we will have some Q&A, of course. But let me ask you a few things. Interesting, just trivia. Amazon, Early days of Amazon, they sold one and only one thing. What was that?
Books.
Books.
Only books. That's right. And who copied their model in India?
Flipkart.
Yeah. Remember early days of Flipkart, books only. Early days of YouTube. Anyone?
Videos, probably simple.
Yes, video sharing.
Kids video.
I mean, video will be part of it, right?
Kids
But
video.
Huh? Kids. Did you say kids?
Yeah, maybe kids video.
Sir, it was a platform where individuals can come and upload their videos.
Pet videos.
What kind of videos?
Pet videos.
Paid.
Pet.
No. Well, okay, in a different context, maybe. Interestingly, YouTube was a video dating site. You actually put up a personal video talking about your preferences, etc., etc., so others could kind of swipe left and right, kind of, in those days. Look at you. So YouTube was actually a video-based dating site. A lot of people don't know that. Early days of Twitter. Any guesses? What did it start as? Okay. So this
SMS,
is
free
sorry?
SMS.
Free SMS over data plan. Absolutely right. Which is why they had the text limitation earlier. Because SMSs had that constraint, so many characters. So they offered you to do SMS without having to rely on a carrier. And then, of course, it became so many things, including Trump's favorite platform and all that. Netflix, early days.
DVD sharing, yeah, DVD renting.
And how did they do that, Ronak?
They had a partnership with box office, if I'm not wrong.
Blockbuster.
HBO.
Blockbuster.
But how did the actual transaction of DVDs happen? One was, of course, Blockbuster. You can take it from a store. The other one, how did they do?
DVD deliveries in your mailbox, I think.
That's right. Think about it. You could actually go online, pick your movies. It gets couriered to you, and 2 days hence somebody comes to pick up the same courier. You put it in a packet and you courier it back to them. So there's DVDs going back and forth. Physical DVDs flying before, of course, internet solved that problem for Netflix. And Flipkart we discussed. Books only. And now it's everything else that Walmart wants them to do. Okay, so folks, we are at the end as far as this conversation from a presentation mode is concerned. That is my email ID. Thank you for being very patient. Like I said, I know it's end of the day, end of the week, but I'm very, very glad to have shared some moments with you. I wish you luck as you go forward. Reach out if I can help you. Happy to do it. Shardul, if there's any other structure you want to create out of feedback or pitch presentation, I'm happy to volunteer. And of course, happy to take questions as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ajay, for the wonderful session with a lot of small, very important insights spread throughout. And I think people had a lot of engagement. I'm seeing the chat box still coming in with a lot of questions. I think not really questions, but I think feedback and comments more so. I have one question. Jay, do you want to ask that live?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So in the level 2, you were explaining about the marketing and stuff when startup starts marketing after they've launched their product or they have made their product live. So my question is that whenever a startup is trying to market a product, when they are developing a product, there are high chances that startup may fail to produce a product, and it can cause a startup a trust issue and something like that.
Correct. So the way I'm reading your question, Jay, it's a good question. Let me flip it back at you. In a startup journey, when should marketing begin?
So what I think is that for a startup journey, after a prototype is ready.
Okay.
Means for a startup, basically a startup, the marketing of a whole startup should be begin, but a product specific marketing should start after the prototype is ready.
Okay, fair. So let me maybe break it up for everybody's convenience. So marketing is a big word. There's one part of marketing which is about understanding your customers, right? which is the customer segment? Are you B2C? Are you B2B? Are you B2B2C? Are you B2G? What is the profile we discussed earlier? Are you selling in rural India, urban India, global customers? So part of marketing is actually understanding the terrain, and that must start upfront. Then comes the aspect of promoting your business and the product and service, and some branding, paid marketing, organic marketing. That is tied to your product release cycle. So you're right. You don't want to over-promise and over-promote a product that's not ready. Absolutely right. But you may want to do some limited promotion to pilot beta version, for example. And again, if you have 100 potential customers, you may want to pilot it and promote it only 10 or 20 and say, hey, come on board as early customers and try it. So marketing starts day one. What you do changes as the product becomes ready and the team becomes ready and you have more funds, right? Marketing also can be expensive proposition. So you have to do it wisely. So Jay, your point is valid. At different stages, you focus on different things in the whole marketing life cycle.
Okay, sir. Got it. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
I had a question.
Sure, Abhay.
There are many segmentation bases on which you can define your customers, political inclinations, age, education, whatnot, tens and hundreds. So while doing your initial consumer research, how do you make sure that you get the most out of it? I mean, there is only so much consumer research you can do. So how to make sure you do it efficiently and reach the right people?
Okay, great question again. So what we're calling consumer research is tied to what we discussed under level 1 and 2, which is basically understanding your potential customers, buying patterns, thinking patterns, life patterns, if you will. Now, you have to start somewhere, right? The universe of billions of people cannot be your market. You have to make some assumptions, Abhay, when you start and say, okay, I'm going to go after top 6 cities in India and the non-vegetarians in that, and the adult population of 18 to 50, for example. This is a broad assumption I'm making. That also is a huge population. Now you say, okay, amongst these, I'm gonna figure out, let's say 50 or 60 or some number per city. I'm going to talk in 4 or 5 cities. I'm going to reach out to them. I will use my personal connection and talk to, let's say 50. I'll give a survey. I'll put out a survey to another 200 maybe. And I will also look at some research reports that exist from other sources. 4, I will try to understand what my potential or close competitors are doing and see what kind of data I'm getting. So, Abhay, you start with an understanding, start with a hypothesis around who your customers are, and it is connected to what you're bringing to the market, right? Go validate that hypothesis through real, actual conversations and data collection. And again, sometimes the data exists. You just have to do some smart Googling and research report analysis. But my strong recommendation is do first-hand interactions as well. And don't just rely on what our parents and uncles and aunts are saying. Just go out and talk to people you don't quite know, because our family and friends will be biased. Start. Once you do a first round, you'll say, hey, actually, the age group I'm targeting is not the right age group. The 18 to 45 age group may this conversion to protein base is very difficult. I'm going to try more younger audiences. So my target actually the 18 to 25. Do that round with them. And then you figure out, hey, looks like within this, there is a gender bias. Female tend to be gravitating more towards this idea than anybody else. So as you go do more of these research things, you get narrower and get better, more importantly, get better understanding of your customers. And that's what you can then build the product on, do some test marketing and piloting and all of that. Short answer, it's iterative. You don't really know your customer till you start. It is an iterative process. Shardul, go ahead, please.
Yeah, absolutely. And just one key point to focus in the context of our sector is understanding, the whole concept you all the attendees must have heard a lot of times now through our resources. Who's your end market, right? Is it vegans or non-vegans in a country like India, guilty non-vegetarians? So doing a lot of market research and understanding those cohorts, obviously we believe a lot of these products should be primarily meant for, non-vegetarians. That's why you're focusing on taste, price, convenience, right? And ultimately that vegan population is a very small single-digit population in a country like India. So accounting for all of those things, you again, everything that Ajay said is applicable. It's an iterative process, and you have to constantly realign your market research based on who your understanding are your end consumers. So yeah.
So when actually the whole journey is iterative. This is about understanding the market. Even your product development will go through its own journey, right? You won't quite nail it to the first shot. Testing, feedback, etc., etc. Similarly, your fundraise, etc., you'll reach out to 10 investors and get some feedback and change your strategy. So actually, the whole iterative nature of innovation or entrepreneurial journey is the nature of the beast. So please accept it. Figuring things out in a very deterministic way usually doesn't happen. And again, the reason I'm saying that is so that you're mentally prepared. Prepare to go through the cycles of learning and experimentation. It will become part of who you are.
Dr. Sapan Kumar, did you have a question?
I do have one question, though.
Go on, Ramya.
Yes, Ajay, thank you so much for your presentation. I have one quick question. As a B2B company that is hard tech and let's say cost intensive in the terms of CapEx, we are currently closing the gap by franchising one of our production plants. But however, we find that some equity investment is very helpful to accelerate things. What is your advice from a day-to-day operations perspective? Like how to keep a sane operation by growing organically while the external investment comes?
Difficult question on me because a lot depends on the details and the context. But let me see if I can give you a sensible, broad answer. See, if your business is capital intensive, what you do need to look at is ways of having that capital which goes into this investment. Now, I may not have looked at franchising it as the first option. I may have actually not even looked at venture capital or PE. I would have said maybe debt is the right answer. But again, one has to look at the way your business is running and generating revenues, etc., and your ability to service debt. But debt-based funding today is very popular, and there are many investors who specialize in it. So I would say just take a look at that as an option. Plus, I don't know the extent of capital that you need, right? Now, if the capital needed is so high, but the market opportunity is also large, little bit in this industry, but in related industries, I'm seeing an M&A situation with a larger corporate has worked out rather well. So in this space, for example, an HUL or an ITC may be able to bring to table both the capital and the production capability and the distribution capability, if that's what you so desire. So I'm saying beyond the VCP path, look at M&A and debt as well as an option.
Thank you, Ajay. Do you think we can have another talk at some other moment and I can share with you a little bit of the flirting we've already done in that aspect of the M&A?
Absolutely. So shoot me an email. The ID is right here. I'm happy to have that chat.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Awesome. So last call for questions. If anybody has a question, we still can do 5 more minutes. I know we are slightly over time, but we are counted for 10-15 more minutes for the Q&A. So if anybody has a question, feel free to raise your hand. We can promote you or ask it through the Q&A button or the chat function. Any specific thoughts based on design thinking, understanding your consumer, and perhaps business modeling basics around your startup? These were general insights, obviously, which are applicable. You have to think about all of these frameworks, canvases, and models in terms of context of the sector and all the readings and learnings and other sessions that you'll be undertaking. But I think it's a great place for a lot of you who were new to this, and also perhaps a refresher for some of you who have taken perhaps some of these sessions in the past as well, maybe having gone through some incubator, accelerator. Having said that, if there are no more questions, we'll close down. I'll just wait for another 30 seconds. Till then, Ajay, if you want to share any parting thoughts or any closing thoughts, you can perhaps do that.
Well, I want to, of course, thank our friendly organizers. I think what you're doing, what I called earlier as a building or catalyzing movement, is a great initiative. So thank you. And for the others, while you're having a lot of, let's say, domain-specific workshops, please keep in mind I don't think life is either or. Even if you're looking at pure innovation and R&D, having a sense of the business market helps. It may be 80-20, and the flip certainly is true. So the balance you figure out basis what you want to do in life, right? What kind of track are you on? Not just in this competition, but what you want to do with your idea and your venture. Some of the concept you talked about will make more sense to some than others. I get it. But our notion here is to make it as practical as possible. So Shardul, I will share the deck, of course, with you so people can use the templates.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ajay. And I think we'll be sharing the recording as well with all the participants. So, you can refer back to what Ajay was specifically talking about in any given slide, along with the slide deck that we'll share with you. It'll be uploaded on a YouTube handle as always, and just give us a couple of days for that. Thank you once again, Ajay, for taking the time out and joining us today. And for everybody else, we'll look forward to having you on Monday. Tomorrow's session's cancelled. We'll be seeing you all on Monday. So have a great night. I'll switch off the recording now.